Yeah. So Patrick Waugh's comment today kind of put that to bed. It's a little long, but I have the full thing if you want me to read it off.
The whole thing.
Quote, "It's funny when people make it sound like Lou and I are not on the same page. It's totally false. We are talking every day about the lineup. Lou has the final say upstairs, and I have the final say behind the bench. And at the end of the day, we both care to win hockey games. And right now, I won't lie. The spots numbers 11 and 12, we don't feel comfortable yet with the guys, and we're going to try until we figure the guys that we are comfortable with," which makes sense based on every single thing we've seen. Before even they made the roster changes, they did a little bit of shuffling. They tried Julien Gauthier for a game. Clearly, they didn't like that because he went down, and they brought up a Foodie, and they signed Matt Martin to the 1-year deal. So they are trying things out to see who the 11th and 12th forwards are going to be on this team. And they're saying they're comfortable with 10 of the 12, which is fine. I think in most NHL lineups, I feel like that's usually the number, and you have one, maybe two guys that you rotate in and out depending on matchups or situations. But I think it was all, and you're going to say no duh, but I think it was all a little overblown, but based on the comments that Patrick Waugh made after the game against the Panthers. And I'm going to go back to the language barrier that we talked about with the Ilya Sorokin comments. I think this plays a factor, and we're taking Patrick Waugh a little bit too literal.
Yeah, like his first language is French, just like it is mine. And sometimes I say things in a way where it makes sense to me, but when I hear them back again, like, oh, that doesn't really convey what I wanted to convey. Even though I'm perfectly fluent in English, I'm still speaking in my head in French. It's all French up in here. I count in French. I think in French. Everything happens in French, and then you have to translate that. And while French and English is pretty close, the syntax to the structure of a sentence isn't always the same. Like you even just when you're doing adjectives, I think that's the right word. I'm not really good. Anyways, you would say in English the blue couch, but in French you'd say le divan bleu. It's flipped the other way. So the couch blue. And you're like, what the heck? No, it didn't. Right? So that's kind of what's happening in his mind when he's speaking in English. Keep in mind, he's maybe not as fluent as I am. He sounds great, but you can still hear that thick French Canadian accent that I don't have. So we're going to have these moments where there's not some lost in translation things, but just some things that need to be retweaked. Because when he's saying, this all stems from just the word I think, right? When he says, I think this is what he's doing by calling up these players, that's just something we say in French. Je pense qu'il fait ça, là. You're just trying to get through the sentence by saying je pense, I think. And so that's exactly what he said. I think whatever, because I can't speak for Lou Lamoriello, so I think this is what he would say in this instance.
Yeah, and
in French,
I feel like this is common too. Like when sometimes we get the post game, post game or pre-game quotes from the Russian players too, and with their comments, or pretty much any non-English speaker you could from whatever country, but it's not always these longer. I don't know if thought out's the right word, but like structurally sound sentence or few sentences as an answer. And sometimes it's a little clunky, and you have to, not that you have to retranslate it, but you put the pieces together to form the full thought. And I'm just thinking that this is two examples now where this has come up: the Ilya Sorokin one at the beginning of the year, and this now second one with the lineup. And is that a fair way to describe it? Like we're taking it too literal, like the words, and not really the full context of what he's trying to say.
Absolutely. I'm glad you bring in Russian. I studied Russian university. Never fluent by any stretch of the imagination, but again, the sentence structure in Russian is quite different than it is in English. Just take this sentence for an example. Super simple sentence. I love you. Right? In English, you just say I love you. In Russian, it's я тебя люблю. Я тебя люблю. Which would mean you love. That's how you say it. So if you're going to do a direct translations from Russian into English, you would say you love. And whoever hearing that would be like, who you love? Who are you talking about? What are you trying to say, right? Obviously, very simple example here, but you get what I'm trying to say. The sentence structure that's going on in these people's minds that they then have to translate and spit out is completely different. So they might get the order different, or they might use some colloquialism that we as native English speakers may not, or they as non-native English speakers might not be aware of. So when Patrick Roy says, I think, blah, 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 he's trying to say, I don't know the actual words that Lou Lamoriello would use, but I think this is what he would say. But he just like put that into I think, right? And so you're absolutely right. We're just taking it way too friggin' literal. If you like that, make sure to subscribe to Up the Turnpike on Patreon for more exclusive New York Islanders content.